Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another market update. Today is Wednesday, December 10, about halfway through this week. Um, Actually, it's over more than halfway through this week. Tomorrow is Thursday, and then it is Friday. So nearing the end of the week. Let's go ahead and talk about the trades that we have been in, or the trades that we have taken. USD CHF, as I had mentioned yesterday, I actually ended up closing this one at break even. Shortly after the market opened back up, we were kind of consolidating within this area, and I sent out a message saying, and I updated the signal to say that we are going to be closing if price reaches our break even point. And after a few hours, that is exactly what happened. Price reached our break even, broke through, retested. We created like a 4-hour double top right here. 4-hour double top. We broke below, came back, retested the neckline, and then sold very, very aggressively. So, in terms of market structure, I think this was a decent trade. But in terms of overall potential on this move, I think that there's still a lot of downward potential, downward momentum that we are waiting on. We're waiting on price to stop pulling back, for price to stop consolidating. There's a lot of news surrounding the US dollar, and all of that is affecting the way that price is moving. But in terms of market structure, monthly time frame had a pretty strong rejection. Now, I think other USD pairs have a bit of a different structure. For example, if we look at Euro USD, this one looks like a monthly rejection candle for a proper continuation to the upside. Or sorry, we're looking at the wrong. If we're looking at something like USD CAD, I think would be a good example. USD CAD has, wait, USD CAD, USD CHF. So for this one actually has a very nice monthly rejection candle, which kind of signifies the top of a move or a sort of like a pullback that is going to be starting. USD CHF, on the other hand, monthly candle closed with like a doji, had a long wick to the downside, so there's potential to the downside there. However, on the weekly time frame, we were bullish, so we had bullish market structure. We had a rejection candle in the same area as we had one before. And on top of that, we had reacted from the daily EMA. So we were below, we shifted above, we retested, bought above. And then on the 4-hour time frame, we also broke and retested above the EMA. So overall, it was a loss avoided. I think we traded this one really, really well in terms of we got in when we needed to get in, and then we got out when we needed to get out, due to the lack of volume, lack of buyers in this market. So decent trade overall. I'm not too mad about the fact that we got in and then got out really with no effect to our account. Now, the next trade that we took was NZD CAD. NZD CAD on the weekly time frame last week had a very, very strong reaction to the downside, weekly rejection candle. Now on this one, the monthly candle is kind of like, could be better. It could be better. We're in an area where we've seen lots of rejections in the past. Weekly time frame, we did break and retest underneath this weekly area of interest. Daily time frame had broken underneath the EMA, retested the EMA, and closed with the doji. So a rejection candle that could signify the beginning or the end of this pullback, because we had a 4-hour pullback and we also had a daily pullback. So that was the daily doji candle, after which I had basically looked for price to break and retest underneath the EMA on the lower time frames. For me, I basically watched price create the daily wick. So at first, we didn't have a wick. We opened and we pushed downwards. And then later on, price actually came up to create a very, very small wick, which was this right here. You can see that this was 5 p.m. right here. So price basically opened at this level, pushed down, and then we came back up, created a wick, and then we pushed lower. I basically entered very, very shortly after I saw the reaction to the downside. I entered right here, sent the signal, and we were up about 1%, I would say, on the trade. And then we obviously saw a very, very strong pullback. I continued to hold, another pullback back to break even. I continued to hold, and then we eventually had the news, which hit around 2 o'clock, 2:30, and that really messed up price action for us. So this could just be a deeper pullback on the daily time frame. I wouldn't be surprised if we were creating a head and shoulders pattern on the daily time frame. Another thing to consider is we had this double bottom right here, which we retested with this push to the downside. Now price could very easily continue to go higher and maybe potentially even shift bullish. However, I'm not too interested in taking buys. I still want to take sells. Weekly time frame is very, very bearish. Daily time frame is also bearish, and the 4-hour time frame is also still bearish. So we have 3 bearish time frames. I think at the current moment we are just creating the higher low or the lower high, because this was the shift of structure. So we had a push to the upside, pull back, shift the structure to the downside, and now we are just pulling back at the moment. We could pull back all the way up to this line right here and then sell, and that would still be a valid sell with 3 time frames in sync. So at the current moment, all I'll be waiting for is a internal lower low on the 4-hour time frame. So that just means that we're looking for price to stop pulling back right here and to actually break back below the EMA and retest that, potentially retest the EMA and the previous structure. So I think the best option here would be the 2-hour time frame. 2-hour time frame holds more weight than the 4-hour time frame at the moment. 4-hour time frame will remain bearish, right? So it'll remain bearish from this point down. However, the 2-hour time frame actually went bullish. So we had the higher high, then we had a shift of structure, pull back, sell, lower low, shift the structure, pull back, higher high, shift the structure, went bearish, pull back. Now we are currently bullish again. So what we're basically looking for is for price to shift bearish on the 2-hour time frame, retest, and not only retest, but actually engulf and start to sell even more aggressively. At the very minimum underneath this level right here. So we're just basically looking for a 2-hour shift the structure to the downside under both the 2-hour / 4-hour EMAs. So we're just looking for that break and retest to potentially re-enter this trade. I think it's still valid on the weekly time frame. We still have very, very nice structure on the daily time frame, nice structure, and on the 4-hour time frame. I think we are just filling in some of that empty space between this wick and this pullback right here. So all of this needs to basically get filled in. And we'll actually see an example of where price has done that on a different pair that we were also interested in trading. So as of right now, those are the 2 trades that we took. And now we can move into our analysis. So on Bitcoin, still nothing changed. Lower time frame pullback into the EMA. Currently trading above the EMA on the 4-hour time frame. Still looking for the deeper pullback or just a shift of structure underneath this area of interest, underneath the EMA to break and retest. Next is SPX. SPX on the daily time frame closed with a daily doji yesterday. Daily doji and daily doji. So we basically have an internal level of support resistance. For these ones, it's more so of an actual elbow. So here we actually went bullish. We then had a pullback, and now we have the higher high on SPX. On NASDAQ, it's the same thing. This is an elbow for the next higher high. And then on US 30, we still have the lower low, and we are still trying to break bullish or break above that higher low in order to go bullish on the daily time frame. Every other time frame, not every other time frame, but most other time frames, such as the 4-hour and the weekly, are currently bullish, along with the 2-hour, 1-hour, so on and so forth. So for these, I would just look to try to catch a continuation to the upside. It would be more of a scalping trade. There's not much swing trading to be done here, unless you get a proper pullback into the daily area of interest. Excuse me. So yeah, we're just looking for a pullback to continue to buy. Same thing here, basically just a pullback to continue to buy. Unless we get a daily shift of structure, if price manages to go bearish here, pull back, then we might be able to sell. In fact, I would not be surprised if we did something along those lines, because usually price manages to trade very, very, I wouldn't say aggressively. There are times where price is pretty choppy, but I would expect a aggressive sell at some point, and then once price sells, then you could look to buy back some of that value. Same thing here. We're kind of just trading upwards at the current moment. This right here is very similar to this entire push up. A lot of the consistent upwards trending moves, which don't have too much involved. And I think that's what we'll be able to see going into the holidays. I can remember last year around the same time, price really just slows down. Maybe there'll be a few jumps here and there due to news events. But once again, we will have quite a bit of news this week. Some today, some tomorrow. And then next week will be jam-packed full of news. And then after that, it'll just be silent for like 2 weeks. Very, very choppy moves, super, super high spreads. Really just not worth trading overall in general. So I would just stay away. I kind of just focus on moves that will happen outside of outside of the holidays. So stuff for this week and next week. But other than that, I would just take a break from the markets in general until the New Year's. Gold. So gold has created that pullback on the daily time frame. We had the bullish engulfing candle, and then we ended up pushing higher. So we have the higher high, pullback, 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 pullback into the EMA. This was very choppy, very difficult to trade, in my opinion. But now that we are above the EMA, I think it might be a bit easier to manage this type of price action, potentially just a pullback into previous structures. There's somewhat of an area of interest within this consolidation. Maybe there's like an equilibrium right here, and then maybe a push to the upside after retesting the EMA. So something like this. So what news was the most important one? There is no particular, like for each okay, so for each pair, it's going to be different. Today it was probably the federal funds rate, or it could have been, I mean, it's honestly any red folder news is going to have major impact. Like you're going to see at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, you're going to see the AUD just have absolutely crazy moves. Yeah, any of these types of press conferences or news releases can definitely affect people's opinion. Like that's what you're trading at the end of the day. It is people's opinions of what the market is going to do. And if they become fearful due to the news that they're hearing, like for example, if they hear that the job market is doing really poorly, there's not a lot of new jobs, then that is an indication that the economy is slowing down and that there might be better opportunities in other markets. So they'll take their money out of the US dollar and maybe invest it into gold or maybe the Chinese yen. So that's the type of stuff that you're dealing with when you have red folder news. Anyways, we've already gone over all of this. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these other pairs that we have here. Euro AUD. Let's see. Oh, we're drawing. Let's go ahead and go back here. So Euro AUD on the weekly time frame basically pulled back into the previous weekly structures. Daily time frame bearish engulfing candle, and now we have this pullback candle. We're stuck between these two areas of interest here. Kind of like I had mentioned yesterday, price came back into this empty space, left by this huge move to the downside. We actually pulled back. I drew it up with this box right here, but I said anything above this wick, if you get a reaction to the downside off of this area, you could probably enter a trade to the downside. Now, that's exactly what happened. It was a beautiful short-term move. However, we're here for the longer term moves. And this market seems to be struggling to push past this area of interest. We've already created a double bottom on the 4-hour time frame. We've pushed up, retested the double bottom, and retested the area of interest. From here, we might actually see price push higher. In terms of overall market structure, we are bullish on the weekly time frame, we are bearish on the daily time frame, and we are bearish on the 4-hour time frame. Actually, I lied. 4-hour time frame is currently bullish because we created a lower low, shift the structure, pull back, retest to push higher. Yeah, honestly, this is an AUD pair. I would be very, very careful with trading this one now. Within like the next 2 hours, we're going to see a completely different chart. And we might see a huge wick to the upside and then a candlestick to the downside, or we might see a huge candlestick to the downside and then we might close bullish. You know, it could be some manipulation happening there. But as of right now, I do still like the sells. I would just like to see price either retest this area of interest EMA to continue to sell or wait for the proper break and retest underneath the area of interest in order to sell further down. So right now, just going to stay away from the AUD pairs. Here, same thing. This could just be pre-news consolidation, but we do have to note that the weekly time frame is bullish, but the daily time frame had a very, very strong rejection candle, and we're retesting the double top on the daily time frame. So we're retesting this neckline right here, retesting this previous structure, huge bearish rejection candle. I really wouldn't be surprised if price ended up just selling very, very aggressively into this next area of interest down here. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening shortly after the market opens back up. Or we could, retest the EMA one more time and then just push higher. So we'll see what happens with this one. Today's going to be more about sitting back and watching, especially on the AUD pairs. Weekly time frame is bullish here on USD JPY. We're talking about taking buys from this area, and that's the trade that I sent out to you guys on the daily time frame. Price pushed higher. 4-hour time frame, price basically pushed above the EMA, and now we are retesting the EMA. So there is potential to take this trade right here as it stands. We're retesting a 4-hour area of interest, retesting the EMA, but I would have to be very, very selective with how I'm trying to take this trade, right? Yeah, I mean, it'll look good, but it has to actually be a good trade, But overall, it's not terrible. I just don't love the way that we had this candlestick pullback like this. I would prefer to see like a rejection candle, an engulfing candle, something showing that price is done pulling back, because we could very easily, from here, we could very easily close underneath the EMA, and then we're not in a great position. However, if we get two doji candles, a doji candle, an engulfing candle, showing that price is slowed down and is about to push higher, then potentially we could, be interested in taking this type of a trade. But yeah, for this one, we had the pullback into the EMA. We're just waiting for the 4-hour rejection to buy, 4-hour candlestick rejection to buy. And that would basically be this right here, retesting previous structure. This is previous structure, retesting the EMA, and then we're waiting for the candlestick rejection. And that would be the main confluence for these buys. All right. Euro USD. Euro USD is one that we missed out on as well. Weekly time frame is bullish. Daily time frame is bullish. We had pulled back into the EMA, into the somewhat of an area of interest, retest the double bottom on the daily time frame, 4-hour time frame, pulled back into the EMA perfectly again. I believe I was waiting for the 4-hour shift to structure to buy. That's exactly what happened. However, I wasn't present for the decision-making process here. Price closed above with this candlestick right here. Next candlestick gave us this wick pullback. And then you could have potentially entered very, very aggressively. I'm not sure how you would have entered. This was during the news. So this was news, price engulfed. If you tried to enter anywhere within this area, you would have probably gotten really, really bad spreads and suffered the consequences of trying to trade the news. However, if you entered within this area right here, you probably were fine. You just had a bit of a scare when price came down, created that wick, and then pushed higher. Overall, this was a good analysis for this pair. At the current moment, there's nothing we can do. Prices kind of ran away from us, and I think it will continue to push. Now you'll notice in a similar place, what it did was it aggressively manipulated to the downside or sold off of the EMA. And then the next candlestick had a very, very strong pullback, filling in a lot of that candlestick empty space. So you see how these two wicks overlap in this area. So we have this candlestick wick and this candlestick wick. There's no empty space in between them. That's kind of what I would like to see here. So I'd like to see some of this empty space filled in. And then after price reaches at the very minimum, like this line, I would be looking to take a continuation trade to the upside. So I just really want to see price sell, fix a lot of this, what would you call it, inefficiency. So there's a lot of inefficiency due to the news. Price pumped very, very aggressively. If we can fill in some of this inefficiency, retest some of these previous structures, that would be the best thing in the world to see in order to take a continuation trade here. So I'll be looking for a 4-hour. Yeah, so it would be a 4-hour pullback to buy on this pair right here. So 4-hour pullback, you could maybe just aim for price to pull back into these two candlesticks or these two wicks or these two ones down here. I would prefer the lower ones because you have this inverted head and shoulders right here. So you have your shoulder, you have your head, you have your other shoulder right here. Price broke above all the way up here, retested all this stuff, and then continued to press higher. So that, in my opinion, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for this pullback into this area of interest on the 4-hour time frame in order to take a proper continuation to the upside. So yeah, that's what I will be waiting for. This is probably going to be the better opportunity for the rest of the week. considering the fact that most USD news has already passed. So if we look at it, we had most of our USD news. We'll have some USD news, which will be unemployment numbers tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. That could give price the push it needs. Like what I think might happen, right? What I think might happen is starting with the market open. We'll probably open and we'll close, close with the candlestick that goes down. Next 4 hours, this will be 9 p.m. candlestick goes down. And then, London session, 1 a.m. And then whatever, 5 a.m. Next thing you know, it's 9 in the morning. And then that's when we get the push to the upside with an engulfing candlestick. Okay. So that's what I would like to see is, and we're probably going to end up entering closer to pre-New York session, maybe 7 in the morning Eastern time, depending on what price looks like it's about to do. So yeah, we'll see about that one. Next is going to be some of these other pairs here. So yeah, AUD, NZD, due to this daily candlestick rejection of this previous structure area of interest, daily time frame bullish, 4-hour time frame is bearish. This is kind of similar to where we are in NZD CAD, where we have this huge sell to the downside that needs to get filled in. And then on AUD NZD, we had this huge sell to the downside that needed to get filled in. But instead of instead of selling down here, price came all the way back up to fill in all of that empty space, all the way to the point where this is the last previous. This is called a bearish order block, where it's the last selling candle before, or the last buying candle before the very, very aggressive sellers came into the market. So price tapped into this and then sold. We're currently creating a 4-hour double top. If price does give us a break and retest, we could potentially sell. However, you have to be aware of that news event that's coming up soon. If that doesn't affect the market too much, then you could, obviously potentially just wait for the break and retest on AUD NZD to take a very, very counter trend trade. Weekly time frame is bullish, daily time frame is bullish, but the 4-hour time frame, well, the daily time frame has bearish market structure due to this head and shoulder or double top neckline and previous structure retest, and then the daily candlestick rejection, the 4-hour double top right here, retest to sell. After that, we have Euro NZD. Once again, not really interested in this one. I'm going to wait for the news. GBP AUD, same thing. Price had retested our area of interest and sold. 4-hour time frame, still bearish, still underneath the EMA, but we're waiting on the news. GBP NZD, similar situation. Just waiting on, well, we're not waiting on the news because the news is going to be for the Australian dollar, not the New Zealand dollar, but they're going to be very, very similar in terms of structure. One more thing to note is we have this rejection candle. Anytime we have these rejection candles, we can expect to see potential reversals, even if they're only short term. So I'm going to stay away from this one. USD CAD. I think we're kind of gone. We're just waiting for a daily pullback into the EMA, into previous structure to sell. EuroCAD, we're having that pullback into that area of interest. So this one will be good to watch and wait on. I think we can maybe expand our area of interest just a little bit to include this structure point, and also some of these wicks. EuroCAD would probably be one I would be down to watch and potentially trade. Weekly time frame is bearish. We have a lower low on the weekly time frame, currently having a pullback. Daily time frame has a lower low, currently having a daily pullback. 4-hour time frame is currently bearish. Lies. It's currently bullish. So we have a lower low right here, higher high, or lower low, shift the structure, higher high, higher low, currently creating the next higher high. just waiting for price to retest that EMA, the area of interest, and then we'll be looking for sells. So for this one, it will be a 4-hour slash daily pullback into area of interest to sell. And then we are moving on to Euro NZD. Euro NZD is bearish on or it's bullish on the weekly time frame, but it's trying to go bearish. Very choppy on the daily time frame. Not much for us to trade here. Same same thing on the 4-hour time frame. AUD USD never got the pullback, so we're not interested. We're currently kind of at the higher high. Still waiting on the pullback. We might get it during the news event. We will see. AUD CAD. We're moving higher, but we're moving kind of slow. We have the 2-hour inverted head and shoulders, retested the neckline to buy. Not terrible, but I don't love the fact that we have this 2-hour rejection candle, which could lead to a potential, move to the downside. Just going to stay away from this one for now. NZD USD broke above, retested to buy, currently waiting on a nice slow daily pullback to the downside. Could take a week or two to happen, but eventually we'll be able to take buys. Euro GBP. This one, on the other hand, looks nice to me. We have a lower low on the daily. This could be the lower high. We had a daily pullback, daily rejection candle. Doji 4-hour time frame is currently bullish. But we're in this area of interest, which isn't exactly the best thing to see. But considering the fact that we kind of opened and pushed higher, we're inside of an area of interest, we could be waiting on price to just let itself go to the downside. Honestly, what I would look for is for this push to end. So this is currently this pullback to end. Pullback, 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 and then eventually we will sell, retest to sell again. So we're just looking for a lower time frame reason to sell. We're also kind of creating this inverted or regular head and shoulders right here. Shoulder, head, shoulder to sell. In a perfect world, you would be able to take the sells in the next 24 hours, but ideally you would be selling underneath this area of interest here. So maybe a break and retest to sell would be your best option for this pair. GBP USD, same thing as Euro USD. So we're just waiting for a 4-hour slash, I think it was a 2-hour, 4-hour pullback in order to buy. So you have your nice little area of interest here. And then you're looking for buys like so. Also not a bad opportunity there. GBP, CAD, not interested, super choppy. Onto the CHF pairs or the JPY pairs, currently creating higher highs on most of them, still waiting on proper pullbacks into previous daily structures. Hasn't happened. It really hasn't happened. Here we kind of got the pullback, but we never really got a good enough pullback to where we would be comfortable with buying. But yeah, not really interested in this. The JPY, USD JPY is one of the better looking pairs in terms of waiting on a continuation. I don't love the way we closed on NZD JPY. Looks like we have dojis on some of these pairs here. Daily doji, kind of a daily doji, not exactly. This one definitely a daily doji, daily doji, daily rejection candle, daily doji rejection candle. So a lot of these look like they might be about to start a bit of a pullback on the daily time frame. And if that is the case on USD JPY, then we might actually start to sell further into this area of interest down here. So we have to be careful of that. CHF pairs. CHF pairs look like they've reached their limit in terms of how high price is going to move. Weekly time frame is bullish, daily time frame is 4-hour time frame, daily time frame, weekly time frame is bullish, daily time frame is bullish, and 4-hour time frame is currently bearish. I think that's the situation for most of these pairs. And we're currently above the EMAs. I mean, for now, I would continue to look for buys. There's no real reason to be selling CHF pairs. I think that we did begin our daily pullback, and that's why we avoided this loss here. On USD CHF, it's the same thing. We're having a daily pullback. If for some reason the daily time frame, well, it is bearish here, but on most of these pairs, it's bullish. If for some reason the daily time frame goes bearish on the majority of these CHF pairs, like for example, it'd be much easier for Euro CHF to go bearish than it would be for AUD CHF or even CAD CHF. Like for GBP and NZD, it wouldn't take much. It would just take one big bearish engulfing candle, and next thing you know, we're bearish on 2 time frames. So as of right now, I'm just going to sit out and wait. You can maybe take counter trend trades on these, hoping that price, here, for example, we did break underneath the EMA, retested to sell. Maybe you could take counter trend trades on the CHF pairs, hoping that you're going to get that daily continuation pullback into maybe previous structure or an area of interest. So very, very risky for that. But I don't see why price wouldn't return to such a nice area of interest and to retest the EMA before potentially continuing to go higher. So that is up to you guys. So for right now, I'm just going to stick to a simple little list. USD JPY is currently at the area we want it to be. In order to take buys, I would personally just look for rejection candles and maybe a lower time frame shift of structure in order to take buys. So that would look like a lower low, shift the structure, pullback, and continuation to the upside. So 4-hour doji rejections. Here we need a 4-hour pullback, and here we also need a 4-hour pullback. So pretty simple for today. I mean, we shouldn't focus on everything at once because we have so much news happening. I think we should just focus on a few pairs at a time, and obviously any other ones that you guys might be interested in. But that is basically it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next call.